It was less a miracle on 34th Street, more a hard-earned, gritty victory on 34th Street for the Knicks on Christmas, 117 to 114 over the San Antonio Spurs. We're getting into it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And in case you didn't know, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. And we want to thank you guys for making us part of your daily routine, even around Christmas time. Hopefully you enjoyed that Christmas Day episode where we previewed the Spurs game and now the day after Christmas. But no matter what, we're here for you guys 5 days a week, coming into your ears or to your eyes on YouTube. So make sure you hit subscribe in both places, notifications bell on YouTube, and the auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, as you can find Strick.land, and he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and the Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And today, yesterday, we gave ourselves Christmas Day off. Forgive us. We're recording on December 26th. But 117 to 114, the Knicks beat the Spurs. And Gavin, my biggest takeaway from this game all boiled down. I mean, look, well, first off, Mikal Bridges is in the process of sealing a phenomenal December with some really great performances, 41 points in this one, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I thought the biggest thing was I've seen a lot, especially like in our YouTube comments and on social media and whatever, people being like, oh, the Knicks, they're really good on offense, but they've really just lost that edge this year. Like what happened to the Knicks I love? Last year they would just like punch everybody in the mouth and blah, blah, blah. Well, those people got what they wished for. That was a Christmas miracle for them, at least in the final 38 seconds or so of this game. I thought that was the most Knicksy sequence that we've seen in a while, the most Josh Hart sequence that we've seen in a while. The Knicks come down. They have an opportunity to hit a dagger with under 30 seconds to go. The Spurs say, you know what, we're not going to play the intentional foul game just yet. We're going to, or at all, I guess, apparently. We're going to, just go out and defend, and we're down 3. We can get a stop here, run down, trying to make a 3. The Knicks miss the shot and then scramble. Josh Hart gets on the floor, gets the ball back out, another shot clock, and then they take another shot with the shorter shot clock winding down with about 5 seconds left with OG Anunoby in the corner. He takes a shot and that clanks off, and then Josh Hart once again just tracks that ball down, grabs it.
Mikal tipping it that second time.
With Mikal tipping it. Yeah, through a crowd, just manages to get his hands on it, and then the clock hits zeros, and the Knicks come away with a 3-point win. It was, I think, the most vintage Knicks thing from the last few years that we've seen yet this season, and a really nice way to cap off what was a thriller on Christmas Day, and definitely lived up to the billing of a heavyweight matchup.
And I think you can directly track that feeling of last year's Knicks with how well Mikal Bridges played in this game. I thought on both ends of the floor, excuse me, it maybe more so offensively, but at times on defense too. This was Mikal's most physical game of the year. Like you go to his not his first bucket of the game was the wing 3, but his second was like a drive downhill, took a bump, banked it in. And with Mikal, you're not looking for him. Like he's not OG Anunoby, right? He's not bullying people under the rim for dunks. You're looking for more subtle physicality, but he had that, I thought, this entire game, like from the get-go. I mentioned the layup, had like another one on Wemby in the third quarter where Wemby was trailing him and looked like was on track to just totally eat his shot, maybe really embarrass Mikal by catching it. And Mikal just sort of leans back, gives him like a lefty shoulder bump, hits a reverse layup. And then down the stretch, like whether it was getting all the way to the rim, it was running pick and roll, it was just getting to his fadeaway. But again, like using his body to bump and create space. I was going to say Kevin Durant, but honestly, he really reminded me of Dirk Nowitzki in this one, just over and over again, creating space, shooting off one foot, fading away. Like he was extraordinary in this game, but I thought it started and ended with the fact that he wasn't afraid to take contact. And we talked about it all year with him, where like he was a guy who seemed like he didn't want to go to the foul line, seemed like he didn't want to touch anyone on defense. Josh Hart after the game was talking about Mikal Bridges' apology forms. Like I don't think he was playing well early in the year, and I think he did like on top of the shot making, the process was just picture perfect in this one. And to your point, that kind of like transcended across the board, whether it was Josh like basically single-handedly like carrying him down the stretch, like he was the one even before all that, like he had to put back on another Mikal Bridges miss, like Precious Achua, I thought played tough down the stretch, and Tom Thibodeau making the decision maybe a little later than he should have, but switching OG Anunoby onto Victor Wembanyama and essentially shutting him down the last 5 minutes of this game, and Wemby not totally being able to deal with that physicality. And I think if the Knicks had lost this game, part of the story would have been the Spurs shooting really well, but part of it would have been, I think, their like size and athleticism, both defensively and offensively, giving the Knicks fits and getting out in transition. And I at least like might have had, I don't even know about like toughness questions, but maybe just athleticism questions. And I think Josh almost like, and with an assist to OG, like single-handedly cleared that narrative down the stretch. They were both so big, and like, what's the ultimate test of athleticism, right? Like an ability to win loose balls over and over again. The Knicks did that. They got the win. One of my favorite games, Alex, I think since we started doing this podcast, it was a blast to watch.
Yeah, it really was. And I think we both had this experience where we got to kind of watch it twice because we were at,
Yeah.
Christmas festivities and sort of watching it in the background. And it was funny. I was actually at my mom's house, and, I was watching it, and then she was making brunch. And so I went over to the table to go eat. And then my wife actually pointed out, because I ended up in a seat that didn't have a view of the TV anymore. And then my wife was like, you might want to go over there. Like the game looks pretty close down the stretch. And I was like, oh my God. And I ran over there and watched it. But then watching it again the second time around, I mean, it was fantastic. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that they made really good adjustments. I was gonna wait till a little later to shout it out, but you know what? Forget it. I'll point out now. I think the biggest thing, I mean, even though he didn't have a good shooting day, but OG kind of gets, for my money, maybe he doesn't get the game ball. Like obviously Mikal Bridges should get that, but gets like the secondary ball that they had on the side just in case that ball got lost or whatever. I mean, it did get lost at the end. Brunson threw it into the crowd at the end of the game after they cleared that ball for the last time. But, maybe OG gets the secondary game ball, or they can cut it in half. It doesn't have to be functional anymore. They can cut the ball in half. It's fine.
Sure.
But that switch of him onto Wemby, I mean, honestly saved the game, because I think Wemby was this game, just like last year, I mean, it just kind of was another one of those moments where you go, oh yeah, this guy is the future of the league. Like, I mean, he's going to just absolutely dominate for a long time. And he's uber talented. I mean, 42 points, 18 boards, 4 assists, 5 stocks in this game. I mean, he took a while to get his 3-point shot going too. I think he went 0 for 6 or something to start the game, and yet still shot 6 of 16. Like, he was burning the nets off the hoop in the second half. Like, just the shooting, the putbacks, and the driving, and just the sheer length that he has. The fact that like Karl-Anthony Towns could be standing there with his arms straight up and making an attempt not to jump to not get a foul, and Wemby can just sort of like, without even really jumping himself, just sort of flick a ball over his hands. It's just insane. It's like, it's unfair that he is as big as he is and as skilled as he is, because it just doesn't compute, and I still don't think it computes with many NBA players that are playing against him. But he was certainly able to be stopped by OG, which is really impressive, because you look at them standing next to each other, and like, OG is giving up, half a foot, if not more, to him in height. And then wingspan, obviously OG has a nice plus wingspan, but so does Wemby. Wemby has like an 8-foot wingspan. So the fact that OG was able to get into him enough to create some discomfort for Wemby, I thought was the key to the game, because it was, you're watching it and you're like, they're already talking about Wemby's, potential scoring records and everything else with like 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then OG gets switched on him. He doesn't score another point the rest of the way out. So he just stalled at 42. And he had 42 in the first 41.5 minutes of the game, or 40.5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
The job that OG did down the stretch, including then making a really clutch 3 that the Knicks needed too, which was great. But like, the defensive work that he did on Wemby was invaluable, and just kind of goes to show, like, it actually is kind of funny. It's sort of a microcosm of the defensive player of the year, all defense debate that'll be this year. Like, do the gaudy stats matter the most, or does the fact that you can switch OG Anunoby onto freaking Victor Wembanyama in the key points of the game? How many points does he get for that when it comes to voting at the end of this year? Because I think and hope that this performance, especially on the national stage like this, planted at least a little bit of a seed in voters' minds of just how valuable OG Anunoby can be on defense.
Yeah, I do think if Victor Wembanyama continues to average like 6 blocks a game, might not matter, but OG was he was incredible. But Mikal Bridges was the story of this one. We will come back and talk about his Knicks career night. Let's call it that. I would say just flat out, given the stakes, given the stage, maybe the best overall game of his career. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we're going to let you know about our friends over at Game Time. And, hey, maybe you missed out on the Knicks game, but that's okay. There are more Knicks games that you can go to. You missed Christmas, but that's fine. There's plenty of other games the rest of the season. And maybe you got some money that's burning a hole in your pocket from Christmas too. Luckily, you could probably stretch that pretty far with Game Time, because Game Time offers one of my favorite features called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats at your favorite events. Could be a Knicks game, could also be whatever else you want to go to, a concert, anything else. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've used that feature a bunch. I entertained the idea possibly of going to Knicks Christmas this year, but my wife and I got a new house, so it wasn't really in the budget. It was a little bit different of a Christmas gift there. So maybe next year we'll look into it on Game Time. And I know that if I do decide to do it, I can get the best deal no matter what, because Game Time Picks always picks out those best deals for you. And they offer all-in pricing, so you can toggle that feature to show the total up front rather than having surprise fees at checkout. So, there are fees on Game Time, but they are not nearly as high as the other sites. But what's nice is you can see it all right on the little map on the screen there, so that when you click on a ticket and you see like $150 for a seat, it's $150 when you check out. It's really, really nice feature. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you were paying for twice? I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Alex, I've had times in my life where I had a subscription for over a year I didn't even know about, and I'm like, I had just spent $200 on that. It is the single worst feeling in the world. You just sort of feel like you're not on top of your life. But you know what? We're busy people. We need help. Rocket Money gets that done for me. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, let's get into the night that was for Mikal Bridges, because this, like I said I felt my apology for him. This is it. It was not just the toughness with him all year. I think the most concerning thing was, like, early season, there was doubt there. Like you heard it when he was asked about his form. Like, he was just like, we talked about it on our bold predictions podcast, or he was talking really quietly, and he's like, yeah, I've kind of been messing with my shots since my second year. So hopefully we figure it out. And just like, he wasn't confident. And I give a lot of credit to Josh Hart publicly backing him up. And at times, like, I think Josh is like implied that the critiques of him are unfair. I think generally, maybe on some portions of the internet, they've been overly harsh, which is fair, but also inevitable when you're an NBA player. I think for the most part on shows like ours and some of our contemporaries, like, there have been reasonable critiques of the guy, but Josh Hart, I think, constantly defending him, constantly imbuing him with confidence. And then on the court, like I've made reference to it on past shows, but Jalen Brunson over and over and over again has just gone back to him this year. An early season when Mikal could not hit a wing three to save his life. You saw Jalen 3 times a game creating from a wide open wing three and never losing faith and saying over and over again, you're going to get it. We're going to need you down the stretch of this season. This is not a trade for the first 20 games. This is a trade for the next 4 or 5, hopefully maybe 8 years when it's all said and done. And Mikal's like he's been turning it around, and like we've seen it in like bits and pieces, and for long stretches. Like this was the exclamation point. This was the night where you were saying, our friend Benji Ritholtz put it back. He said, are we sure the Nets got enough picks for Mikal Bridges? Over the last month now, leading the NBA in true shooting percentage at 69%. That's 4% better than anyone else. Cat is second in the entire league in that stat. I mentioned him going downhill in that first play. 3 of his next 4 shots, Jalen Brunson, who had a pretty terrible night in every other facet. One thing I'll 100% give him credit on, he set Mikal up three times, again, like very early in this game for 3, like scored off Jalen setting like a screen for him and then cutting to the rim for a little inside hand finish. And then once he got the fadeaway going, it was over. Like he started this game 7 for 7. His passing was impactful. Like he ran that late pick and roll of Precious Achiuwa I mentioned. He had one play to start the third quarter that I loved where he saw Cat had a seal, but he basically did like a Nash dribble to get Cat the best angle where he looped around the rim, came all the way back around near the free throw line, and then dropped it off to Cat where Cat could just turn, lay it right in. His defense, I thought, like one-on-one struggled with Vassell a little bit, but in transition, like at one point, just kind of like a perfect like dip over to Victor Wembanyama to take away a lob. Spurs didn't end up scoring that possession. Had a few different blocks in transition, the tip rebound late. And then, like, I know I hit on it already, but just the shot making down the stretch, the fact that he wanted the basketball, and that give like Jalen Brunson some credit and Karl-Anthony Towns, who's mostly off the floor down the stretch of this game, like they sort of cleared out because I think it was from, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm off on this. It was something like the 6-minute mark to the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter. I love this from Tom Thibodeau. No Cat on the floor because he had 5 fouls and Precious was playing well. And no Jalen on the floor because Jalen was really struggling. So they kept Deuce in there. They kept this defensive first lineup out there. And the Knicks were sort of, before that group came in, they were on the brink of giving this game away. It was something like a 15-4 run to get back in control. And like Mikal had the keys down the stretch and he just piloted them beautifully, like over and over again, whether it was snaking back or just like push dribbling to a spot. Like he knew where he wanted to go. He got there. And then whether it was Wemby, whether it was Sohan, whether it was Chris on him, just executed over and over and over again, nearly hit like a 30-footer that went in and out. That would have been the ultimate dagger. But it's just insane how hot he got. And I'm hoping like he's not going to have the shooting every night, Alex, but if this confidence just carries him through the rest of the season, it in my mind, legitimately takes the Knicks from a really good team that's just going to lose whenever they run into the Celtics and could lose to another team to, I think, a bona fide championship contender. That's how significant him playing like this is to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was about to say the same or something very similar, honestly, which is like, you know, we've sort of talked about it recently, but, you know, if both he and OG can get going at the same time, it seems like there's like a scale, right? And it's like, if one goes this way, the other one goes down. And if the other goes up, the other one, you know, eventually once that levels out or once they're both just able to go up, it's going to be a game changer. Excuse me, because like this was another game where OG kind of struggled, you know, with his shot. And that's, you know, it was fine. You know, ultimately, like we were talking about it before the show, but if you look at the combined numbers between Brunson and OG, the fact that the Knicks were able to win a game where Brunson and OG combined to go 10 of 33 is honestly crazy. Like, you know, that they shot 30% basically between the two of them and only 2 of 11 from 3 between the two of them. And both of those went to OG. I mean, the fact that the Knicks were still able to squeak out a win with that happening and with Cat not playing much down the stretch because Precious was playing well, just kind of speaks to the team that the Knicks have built at this point, like the amount of scoring talent that they've added. And like if Bridges is going to now be this guy, and it looks like he is, like, I mean, you know, they were referencing on the broadcast, I think he shot 45-ish or 44-ish% going into yesterday from 3. That's got to be over 45 now for the month of December. You know, if this is more the standard that he's setting for the rest of the year, maybe he doesn't shoot quite this hot maybe it levels out to, I don't know, a paltry 40% from three for the rest of the year, or something like that. But if he's able to offer that tertiary scoring option, we saw it today, I think, in I apologize. His name is escaping me. The interim coach for the Spurs.
Oh, I want to say Mitch Johnson or Micah Johnson. I can double check.
Yeah, we'll double check that. Apologies to him. I think he's doing a bang up job.
It's Mitch Johnson. It's
Mitch Johnson, yes, said something to the effect after the game of like, he was asked like, why weren't you throwing like more aggressive doubles and whatever at Mikal Bridges? And he was like, well, kind of when you have Jalen Brunson still out there, you kind of have to still keep a lot of defensive attention on him. So even though Brunson didn't really, score as well as you might want in this game, he still was having an impact on the game. If you eventually reach the point where Mikal is having that same sort of impact, where teams are now saying, oh, we can't aggressively double Brunson as much because you still have Mikal Bridges over there and you can't leave him open. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, you might also have Cat on the floor too. Like suddenly you have three guys that any given team knows, like, oh, if we get cute, like one of these three guys could score 40 points tonight. And, just having that level of scoring talent in that starting lineup, to say nothing of the fact that like OG Anunoby and Josh Hart have been plus-ish, like at least above average 3-point shooters this year, and guys that can put the ball on the floor themselves, guys that can make a good cut and get a dunk or whatever. It's making things really difficult for opposing defenses, and I think we really saw that in this game. So huge kudos to Mikal too, and for just, I mean, I don't want to like try to pretend like Wemby didn't have a phenomenal game, but there's something to be said for the fact that Wemby petered out at 7.5 minutes once he got a OG Anunoby put on him, and Mikal Bridges carried the Knicks all the way through a final buzzer in this one. I think outside of the fact that like he scored 1 point less than Wemby or whatever, but I think that he managed to have the better overall full game impact in this one and take the Knicks all the way to the finish line. And so if we're looking at this as a duel, Mikal obviously won the duel in the team aspect, but I think won the duel in general, was the superstar on the floor today, and made his impact felt the most across this whole game.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just cool to watch them go back and forth. Like I know I said it for a segment, but I'm going to remember this game for a long time. And especially like, I think to your point earlier, when we look back on Wemby's career and health permitting, like I really don't, maybe this is bold, but I would be surprised if he doesn't go down as a top 10 player all time. It'll be cool to say like, hey, early on, Mikal Bridges got him a little bit. We'll come back. We'll talk about Jalen Brunson's struggles. We'll talk about everyone kind of getting their moment down the stretch of this game. All that next and more on Locked On Knicks.
This episode is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through this 117-114 thrilling win for the Knicks at MSG on Christmas. We've talked about Mikal a lot, but one thing that I liked about this game was that everyone kind of got their moment down the stretch. And I think it was, I only bring this up because we were sort of bringing this up in multiple shows leading up to this game of being like, it seems like everybody's kind of had their moments in individual games leading up to this. It seems like it's setting the stage for hopefully everybody clicking on all cylinders once this game tips and, Christmas Day gets going. And, we saw OG have a big game recently. We've seen Mikal shooting a lot better. We've seen Hart have good games recently. Brunson have a big game the other day, where he just carried the Knicks to a win by himself because he had to. And it just sort of set the stage for like, hopefully everybody gets a chance to shine here. I would say that everyone did. Like Mikal, obviously the top scorer, and we've sung his praises enough. But Karl-Anthony Towns gets a nice stretch in the third quarter where he sort of like just asserted dominance over Wemby for a solid like 5 minute stretch where he was scoring inside. He hit this 1-3 like right in Wemby's eye on the outside where Wemby just for whatever reason late in the shot clock just wasn't feeling challenging Cat on that one for whatever reason. And they even noted on the ESPN broadcast, like, why do you have your hands down? Like that's maybe the best shooting big man of all time. And you're there with your hands down and then reacting way too late to him getting the ball late in the shot clock with an opportunity to shoot a three. He hit that one, got the cool little moment where he did the tongue out to the crowd and like the growl and the scream and all that stuff. And so kind of had his moment. Cat ended with 21 and 9 in this one, which is pretty modest for him, all things considered. But all in all, we were worried about, is Wemby going to like shut Cat down? And he didn't. Cat had his moment where he kept the Knicks in this one and, it gave them a nice spurt with Wemby right out there. So that was not much of an issue. But then Josh Hart obviously gets the huge rebounds down the stretch, in those final 30 seconds that won the game for the Knicks. OG Anunoby hits struggles overall with his offense in this game, but hits a clutch three down the stretch that the Knicks really needed. And obviously plays the defense on Victor Wembanyama that stops him from scoring the final 7.5 minutes of the game. Even Deuce McBride, who struggled, he went 2 for 10 in this game. The missed layups are getting to be maybe a little concerning with him. I feel like he was automatic on those and lately just has not been able to get the finesse on that. But either way, he ends up hitting a clutch three down the stretch too. And then obviously Brunson, little tough, for him. He registered his last assist with I think halfway through the fourth quarter or something like that. But had some points down the stretch and obviously had the gravity that allowed everybody else to do everything that they were doing. Ended up with the ball in his hands to end the game and winged it into the crowd. So that was cool. But it was just neat that it felt like everybody on a very important game and a game that we haven't really acknowledged yet, but for a lot of people, it's always been the case, because of how the NFL season rolls and everything else, Christmas Day is the unofficial start of the NBA season for a lot of people. So probably was a really good game for those that are just tuning in, which if you are, hi, nice to see you. But for those people, I feel like this was probably a really great introduction to this year's Knicks because they all kind of got their moment to shine.
Yeah, it was cool. I wanted we did it for a segment, but you can't say too much about Josh Hart and what he did down the stretch. This game finished with 12 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. I was going back and watching the highlights. I forgot the play he had with 2 minutes left where he just rotated over and just swatted away that would be lob to Sohan that it felt like San Antonio was getting wherever they wanted. And Wemby particularly is a distributor, was just kind of toasting the Knicks on that. But Josh Hart continues to be one of the few players that can dominate a high level NBA game without the ball in his hands. He is truly an off ball all-star. And that's it's not the same thing, obviously, as what Mikal Bridges did, but you could argue just as valuable, like Josh's ability to just say, I'm getting every loose ball down the stretch of a game. Like that is just such an incredible weapon. And I think it's one that's easy to underestimate. And it's one that I take for granted at times, but it is sort of the secret sauce. When we were saying first segment, the Knicks got back to playing how they did last year. A lot of that is Josh Hart saying, this is a game that matters. So I'm laying my body on the line. But I wanted to hit Cat and Deuce because I thought they both had interesting games. Cat, it was kind of funny, how it just took him a little bit of time to figure out how to go at Wemby. And you can see Wemby's length really affected him early. And just the Spurs length in general, the Knicks started 1 for 15 from 3 in this game. And some of that was San Antonio's defense. Some of it was them just missing open looks. But it was cool how Cat was just, I mean, you see this so often with great offensive players, going up against a really good defender and they just figure it out. And you always hear, well, you can't just do one thing against great offensive guys. And maybe Wemby's the exception to that, because if that one thing is being 7'5" and being able to move your feet with an 8-foot wingspan, that's a pretty good answer. But Cat was just able to figure stuff out. Maybe I thought his best play of the day was second quarter. He got the ball in the post. Wemby helped on him and he just hit him with a shoulder bump. and then he faked the pass behind Wemby's back, and Wemby didn't totally fall for it, but he sort of paused for a second. It was like, did this guy just pass the ball behind my back? And then that was enough for Cat to just go off 1 foot, fade away, baseline, drain it. It was just like, he just like, it pushed him to like the limits of his skill. And he's like, all right, I have a very deep bag. I can go to this. I can go to this. And then like at one point hit like a running hook over Wemby. Like there was this great 5-minute stretch. Like we talk about Mikal versus Wemby, but 5-minute stretch with like 3 minutes left in the first quarter to like 9 minutes left in the second quarter, where those two scored essentially every basket, just every time down, one of them shooting on the other one. But the third quarter is where Cat really got the advantage. He had back-to-back layups on Wemby. And what Cat was really good at was just driving to the rim. Wemby would contest, but then Wemby would fall out of the play, and Cat was just able to get his own rebound and put it back in. The exclamation point was blowing by him for a dunk. Then that three that you mentioned, and that was his last points of the game. Was 6:35 left in the third quarter. But it's also like that's obviously a negative. You want Cat to be great down the stretch of games. You want to be out there. Like, he picked up his 5th foul, but again, I appreciate that Tom Thibodeau could ride the hot hand, recognize that that's what it would take to slow Wemby down. It's ultimately more important to slow Wemby down than have Cat's offense. When Mikal was initiating and for once this season said, I want to be on the ball, you don't need Cat quite as much if Mikal's just going to turn into Kevin Durant out there. And it's a team where like Cat could sit on the bench and the Knicks could pull out a win, and there's no issues. Like, he's not grumbling, he's not complaining. He's been a great teammate all year. With Deuce McBride, did hit that sidestep 3 with 2:44 left to make it 112-109. Outside of that, like I thought like this was a tough game for him, just in the sense that like the Spurs just looked like bigger, stronger, faster than him. And on defense, he was really struggling. Like at one point, like Stephen Castle Steph Castle was just like going at him and got a dunk on him. He was like, he just like couldn't get it together. You mentioned the missed layup. I looked it up. He's shooting just 53% at the rim this year after shooting 63% last season. So you hope that's something that gets remedied. I just want a little more from him. Like, I feel like there's like the early season version of him when we're saying, oh, like we still have Dante. Like he just hasn't been that consistently. And then maybe we could wrap on this. Like, I thought big picture, like if the Knicks had lost, like we'd be kind of comparing this to the Hawks game a little bit. But another night where, to your point, like Jalen got to his spots, but it's been a weird stretch for him, right? Like of the last 6 games, 5 for 15, 8 for 18, 5 for 14. Then he went off against New Orleans, then 4 for 13, 7 for 23 after a stretch where like he didn't really have like a bad game seemingly for like a month, and was just consistently over 50% from the field, scoring 30 point. Little bit of a rough run for Jalen. I don't know if it's something to be concerned about. Again, it's exciting that they can win even when he has nights like this, but just something to watch. He's missed his last 10 threes now after going 7 for 10 against the Pelicans.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget with Brunson that like his Knicks career kind of started in that way, where he came in and things looked pretty good right away. And then I think it was the month of December, his first season with the Knicks, kind of struggled. Like things were not fantastic. I'd have to look up the splits to confirm that if my memory is correct. But I remember him going through one of those stretches where it was like a RJ Barrett or Julius Randle-esque stretch where you would be like, or Mikal Bridges earlier this year. I mean, every player goes through it. I'm not too worried about it because the difference between this game and say the Hawks game to me, and this doesn't speak to the rest of the games, I guess, obviously, but the difference to me is that I feel like even though they were playing a game against a team that had the length and the youth and the athleticism, which has been sort of the thing that can bother the Knicks a little bit this year, I think that he responded better to it in this game than he did against Dyson Daniels, which probably is a testament to Dyson Daniels and just how crazy he is at defending the basketball. But I think he was getting to his spots. The shots just weren't going in this game, and you could see how frustrated he is with it. Like the one that stood out to me was there was a floater that he missed at one point in this game, and he missed a couple of them. And I think that that's been the biggest thing to me that has looked a little off, which then has translated to the rest of his game not working as well, because I think that he goes to that as like his bread and butter of like, if he's got nothing else in this world, he has that floater to go back to. And that hasn't been going in quite as consistently lately. But there was like one point where he missed one of those and you could just see like they kind of I don't know if they did a quick cut in on him or whatever, but I just remember seeing his face and being like, oh, he's pissed right now. Like, he is not happy about that not going in. But, again, he's just like what you said about Cat a minute ago, which I fully agree with. I think just in general, the Knicks have built this team of guys that they're not letting anything phase them. They're certainly not worried about like, oh, I'm not getting mine, but so and so is getting theirs. Like Brunson, every single game, has been asked. I think he was even asked yesterday, like point blank by a reporter, like, uh, what did struggling, the fact that you struggled in this game, did that matter to you or whatever? Or that might have been after the Toronto game on Monday, I forget. But at one time in the recent future, he was asked about his struggles, and he was just like, "I don't care, we won. It's fine, whatever. I'll figure my stuff out. But as long as we're winning in the meantime, it doesn't matter to me. It only matters to me if like I'm playing poorly and I'm the reason we lose. So that's kind of the mentality of everybody. So it makes me not worry too much about him. He's going to figure it out. Like, the shot looks fine. He doesn't look hobbled or anything. Like, it's not like there's an obvious like, oh, he's hurt right now or something. Like, he's playing hurt and that's why he's playing poorly. Like, does he need to sit for a game or two, which we know he would never do voluntarily. I don't think it's anything like that. So I think it's just a little right. He'll get out of it. But in the meantime, like, even if he's not shooting the ball particularly well, like, he's still, generating the gravity needed to give his teammates the opportunity to go off, to give Mikal Bridges the opportunity to go off. So I don't think it really matters in the long run. I think he'll figure it out. We'll probably see in the next month or so, he'll go on another heater. And if he does, then and everybody else holds up their end of play that they've been playing lately, then this team is going to start looking even more unstoppable than a team that's gone, I think it's 16-4 in their last 20 games. So, if they can improve on that, then things are going to be looking pretty rough for the rest of the league because, if Brunson gets his stuff going again and everybody else is going at the rate they've been going, things are going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing to look for is how he does against size. Like I mentioned the other day, like I heard the KFS guys talking about it, but just since that series against Philly, like teams just consistently putting bigger guys on him. My instinct is that's kind of been happening since he was first on the Knicks. So I don't know how big of a deal it is to make. I think part of it is just there are more like freak wings out there than ever, and like someone like Jeremy Sohan like is just inevitably going to be a challenge for Jalen. But to your point, like still able to get to his spots. Like he shot worse from floater range all year, which you could argue has something to do with the size of his defenders. Like might just be a cold start to the year, and it's still like a small sample size. And on the whole, he's still shot better this season than he has at any point in his career. And I think the great weapon the Knicks have to alleviate that and protect him is there's not, if you have a small guard, there's not a hiding place, right? Like it was a lot of Chris Paul on Mikal Bridges, and Mikal was torching him, right? Like that. Like if you're going to take away Jalen, you're opening something for someone else. And like that was kind of the point you've been making this whole show. The last stat I want to mention, just because I think it sums up everything, and I probably should have said at the very beginning of the show, 17 offensive rebounds for the Knicks. I didn't get a chance to look. I would guess that is pretty darn close to a season high. Josh Hart and Precious Achiuwa combining for 9 of them. OG had 3 in this game. Mikal, I mentioned the late tip. Like, and that's sort of what I was getting at last show. Like and someone in the comments made a great point that the Knicks are 6th in the NBA in rebounding rate, so it shouldn't be their biggest concern. I think what I was trying to get at was like if you have in a big game, you still have that offensive rebounding you can go to on top of the shot making. Like that's exactly what you were saying at the beginning. That's the best of both worlds, and that's a team that can go and win a championship. And again, the Spurs tip of the hat to them. 42% on 38 threes, had 23 points in transition in the second quarter. We're just getting dunk after dunk after dunk. And it looked like the Knicks, there was a world where like it was similar to the Hawks game and they got ran out of the building. But the combination of shot making, the crashing, and the defense down the stretch, gutty Knicks win. To your point, 16 out of 20, I think 10 out of 12 now. Like this is a team that is playing their best basketball. And all of a sudden, Alex, with Boston losing 2 in a row, somehow just 2 games after what was a start that we were worried about, 2 games behind the Boston Celtics for the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think there's a real chance that I don't want to like crap on them. I know they had a historically awesome start, but I think there's a decent chance that they overtake the Cavs at some point too, because I think the Cavs are starting to look a little more mortal recently. So the Knicks, I mean, if they keep going at the rate they're going, yeah, they're gonna be in competition for one of those top 2 seeds. I think if nothing else, the cream of the crop is starting to rise a little bit here, where we're seeing that at the very least, the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavs seem like they're going to probably be the top 3 seeds in the East this year. Although, I mean, I guess you got to tip your hat a little bit to the Magic and then the Bucks, who have been playing a lot better of late. But seems like the class of the East is starting to kind of take shape here at the at this point of the season. A little over, I guess we're a third roughly, slightly over a third through the season. But anyway, lots more to talk about later. So we'll sign off for now. Thank you all for listening, and hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Merry Knicksmas if you celebrate. Happy Hanukkah if you celebrate, because I started on the same day. What a year! The Knicks just it gave everybody a great holiday on December 25th this year. But till next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.